Here I've got the TD3 and the TD3-MO, and I thought I would demonstrate the differences between them. We all know there are little extra bits on the TD3-MO, that's why it's been modded out, but what exactly are they and how do they work? I've not seen anything in detail, and when I got it I started playing around with it and thought exactly what are all these switches and buttons doing. So that's what I'm going to run through here. Top level view then, the stuff that we probably already know. It's got a sub oscillator, we've got control of the portamento time, we've got these two switches here to add a little bit of sweep to the cutoff on the accents. We've got a filter FM, a muffler circuit, overdrive circuit, filter tracking, and then we've got extra control over the envelopes. But on top of that, we've also got more range on the envelope, and we've also got more range on the cutoff. And what this all adds up to is more control, dirtier sounds, but what surprised me was the subtle changes you can get that change the feel of a sequence just by changing the accent sweeps, the amount of accent and stuff like this. So let's just hear what this can do, what this one can't. And that's just a quick demonstration of the variability you can get from the MO version. So let's take a look at each of the different sections individually and show exactly what it's doing. And we'll start off with the filter. So ignoring the sequencer and stuff like that for now, just play the individual notes. It's difficult to get the levels right because this goes through the overdrive. It always goes through the overdrive, and I'll show that in a second. But this is on 0, this cutoff. The envelope on 0, the resonance on 0. But that's as low as it'll go. Whereas on the modded out version, it disappears. And on full, the original sounds a little bit brighter. But as soon as we bring the envelope in, that's full envelope on the silver, on the original. We're getting a lot more envelope response off the modded out version. And that's more obvious when you listen to it with the resonance, so. You can hear that's coming from miles away. And you can see I'm having to tweak with the envelopes then. We'll get to the envelopes in a second. And trying to get those balanced is really difficult because you're getting a lot more bass from the MO version. You lose a lot more bass with the resonance on the original. So another little difference there. So we're getting much more control of the cutoff. We've got much more range on the cutoff. We've got more range on the envelope. The resonance knob doesn't actually change anything, but the very fact that you've got more bass means the response of the whole thing is different. And I think it's something like, I've been playing with this for a while, the cutoff is at about 11 o'clock. Is 0 on this one. With the envelope responses being different, it's difficult to show, which is why I'm doing it manually. As soon as you bring the sequencer into play, all hell breaks loose. It's really difficult to understand what's going on. Tracking is pretty spectacular as well. Say spectacular, you know, compared to what you get on a standard 303 or the TD3. And it acts slightly differently than you might expect. When you turn it up, you're not adding to the higher frequencies or the higher notes, you're taking away some of the cutoff from the lower notes, and that gives you some really staggeringly cool bass sounds. And you can clearly hear there, those lower notes have got less cutoff and they're sort of punching through as big, thick bass tones. TD3 just can't do that. Still sounds cool though, doesn't it? But the other thing that the filter interacts with is the overdrive circuit. So if you look at the overdrive circuit, everything goes through the overdrive. There's no way of bypassing this. So when you turn the overdrive down, you turned everything down. But the overdrive is a feedback loop into the filter. So when the filter's self-oscillating, we can hear the filter on its own, which we can't do on the original either. And of course, another little addition is the fact that we can turn off the wave shape. So we can turn the waves off completely, whereas on the TD3, we've only got the sawtooth or the square. So if I turn the resonance all the way up on the original, and if I play a sequence, there's all sorts of nice little things you can do. And I think that brings us to the end of the filter. Let's take a look at the envelopes now. And this is really interesting and a little bit complex, and it took me a while to get my head around. But on the original, the decay knob only interacts with the VCF. The VCA is fixed. On this, we now have the VCF over here split onto these three knobs. So what this is doing is split onto these three knobs, and this knob here is now the VCA amount, or the VCA time I should say, which we don't have access to at all on the original. That'll stay on forever, and it's almost like a sustain level actually. Until you get to around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And the original's fixed at around 1-ish or something like that, I think. But it's not identical. It's actually got a lot longer decay. If you try and make the modded out version longer, you just get a sustain note on a gate, so it just holds on forever. But you get access to different parameters for the VCF on accented notes and on normal notes. So let's put an envelope on. On the normal notes, we've now got access to the VCF decay. So this knob is almost the same as the decay knob on the TD3. But we've also got access to the attack as well. So we can have a nice soft attack. And I actually think the attack's quicker. So all these things I'm doing here, you just can't do on your modded version. And then we've got access to the same parameter, the decay of the VCF on the accent notes alone. And there's a little LED envelope indicator on these two as well. And hopefully now those knob twiddles I'm doing there are making a bit more sense. And the next thing that interacts with the filter and the envelope are these two switches here, and that's the sweep speed and the accent sweep. And these affect what happens to the filter on the accented notes. So on the sweep speed, we've got 3 different speeds: fast, normal, and slow. And on the accent sweep switch, we've got 3 distinct modes. The bottom 2 modes will give us a high resonant bit of punch. So you get lots of high resonance from that. And then the top position doesn't give us high resonance, but it gives us the accent sweep. The middle position gives us the accent sweep and high res. And the bottom position gives us no filter sweep or no accent sweep, but it gives us high res. So it's quite confusing at first, but once you get your head around it, it makes sense. We'll start off with the accent sweep on, but with the high res mode off. You can hear that sort of wow, and it's quite fast. Put it on to normal mode. And then slow mode. And now we go into the high res mode. So I'll turn the resonance down because this does go really high res. And then we can have the accent sweep off, but the high res mode on. And that can give you some real high resonant punch and some really nasty squeals, which brings me over to this muffler switch. And this, as it says on the tin, muffles the sound so you don't get those really harsh high frequencies coming through. It's quite subtle, but it's definitely there, and you definitely notice that in a club at high volume. And you'll see the little red button we've got next to that. And that just accents everything. We've also got slide time, which is the portamento time, and that's pretty obvious. And that's quite subtle, but it does give some nice variations. If you listen to the end of this loop, you can hear a sort of smoothing of the notes. Sort of da-da, but if we put it onto its minimum, it's da-da-da-da. Yeah, so subtle, but it's definitely there, but on this you can't change it at all. It sounds so lame, doesn't it? I mean, I wouldn't be buying it just for that alone, but it's a nice little addition. We've also got a sub oscillator. We all know what they do, but let's take a listen. We turn the main oscillator off. And that's just got those 3 volume levels. So that gives it a little bit of extra depth, and for extra dirt, we've got the filter FM knob. So that combined with the overdrive gives you some really nasty tones. So that brings us to the end of the sort of knobs and the switches. We've also got some new CV ins and outs. We've got a filter FM in and a filter CV in, which we don't have on the original. We've also got the accent in and the slide in, and we've got a couple of outs as well. We've got the filter out and the accent out as well. So lots more compatibility with your Euro rack. Every time I play with a modded out version and then go back to the original just feels really lame. And it's amazing really, because it's 40 years old. It's massively famous, been used on thousands and thousands of tracks. It's an iconic bit of kit with just 5 knobs to twiddle with and a choice of 2 waveforms. Whereas this, whoa, you know, it makes this feel really old and a little bit lame, to be honest. And now I can understand why people modded out their 303s. So if you've got the TD3, is it worth getting a TD3-MO? I think so, for the price of it. Honestly, I've been playing with that. This just feels just a little bit rubbish. So I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere, and if it was, please think about subscribing and maybe joining me over on my Patreon page. It all helps to support the channel. I've got lots of videos demoing synths and little extra patches and stuff like that. So I hope to see you over there, and I will see you soon.